My name is Hazel, I'm 28 years old, and I live in Charleston, South Carolina. 3 years ago, I met Ethan at an alumni fundraiser. He was polite, outgoing, and 4 years older than me, the kind of man who seemed mature, who knew what he wanted in life. We quickly became the perfect couple in the eyes of our friends. He worked as a financial manager at a major investment firm, and I was the communications director at a small nonprofit. Ethan proposed to me on a June afternoon during a walk by the Ashley River. The ring he gave me wasn't the biggest diamond, but the look in his eyes made me feel like the luckiest woman in the world. I dreamed of a small house with a white porch, candlelit evenings together, and a future we'd build hand in hand. Everything felt perfect. Everything. Except Ethan's family. From the first time I met his mother, Vivian, I felt the weight of judgment in her eyes. She smiled, but the smile never reached her eyes. "What do you do, Hazel?" she asked sweetly, her tone dripping with sugar. But I heard the scrutiny in every syllable. When I said I worked for a nonprofit, she just raised an eyebrow slightly, saying nothing, as if I'd just confessed I was a lost cause. Ethan's father, Douglas, was different, the kind who didn't bother to hide his disdain. Every conversation was about golf, million-dollar contracts, and always ended with a smirk in my direction, like I didn't belong at the table. Ethan used to reassure me. He'd hold my hand and promise that his family would come around, that our love was stronger than anything, and I believed him. Naively, I thought if I was patient enough, kind enough, then maybe Vivian and Douglas would accept me as part of their family. I was wrong. Throughout our year-long engagement, every dinner, every gathering, I had to endure veiled insults wrapped in polite conversation. Vivian once asked, casually during dinner and in front of the whole extended family, "Hazel, if Ethan lost his job, would you be able to support the family?" I froze. She sipped her wine like she'd just asked about the weather. "Douglas?" He once said at a pre-Christmas gathering, "These days, anyone can dress well and pretend to be successful. What matters is background." His eyes locked on mine like a dagger. He didn't have to say it out loud. In their eyes, I would always be an outsider. Ethan saw it, he knew, but instead of standing by me, he stayed silent. "I just don't want to make things more tense," he'd say, every time I cried after those exhausting dinners. I kept telling myself, once the wedding happens, once enough time passes, things will get better. That blind hope carried me until we were just 3 weeks away from the big day. We had already booked the venue, a lavender-covered farm on the edge of the city. My dress was ready, the invitations had been sent, the 3-tiered cake chosen. Every night, I imagined walking down the aisle to music, with Ethan waiting at the end. I dreamed. I hoped. But those eyes, those fake smiles, those cold handshakes from Ethan's family, they never truly went away. They just hid beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to rise up and drown everything. On a sweltering Thursday afternoon, exactly 7 days before the wedding, Ethan called me. His voice over the phone was strange, both excited and hurried. "Babe, my parents booked a weekend trip for the whole family to Naples, Florida. Just a quick getaway before the wedding. I'll be back Sunday." I hesitated. Naples? Now? When we were buried in last-minute checklists from floral arrangements to seating charts? But Ethan had already made up his mind. I could tell by his voice. Arguing would be pointless. "It's just 3 days, he laughed, trying to ease my worry. "I'll call you every night." I reluctantly agreed. After I hung up, I stood still in the quiet kitchen, unease creeping into my chest. Something didn't feel right. The next morning, Ethan rolled his suitcase out the door like he couldn't get away fast enough. No lingering hug, no wistful glance, just a quick kiss on my forehead and a promise to text as soon as I land. I sat on the wooden chair by the window hugging a cold cup of coffee. It felt like an invisible hand was tightening around my chest. Saturday evening, while trying to push away the worst thoughts, I got a call from Sadie, my best friend who happened to work as a manager at a luxury resort in Naples. A strange coincidence. "Hazel," she whispered, "is Ethan supposed to be in Naples with his family?" I sat up straight. "Yes." "Why?" Sadie hesitated, then said something that made my blood freeze. "I just saw him at the hotel restaurant with his parents and a woman I've never seen before." The world tilted beneath me. Who is she? I asked, my voice trembling. Not sure. She looked about 25, blonde, wearing a tiny red dress. And Hazel, Ethan's parents, were acting like she's the future daughter-in-law. I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Sadie continued, her voice careful and slow. Ethan and that woman, they were laughing, sitting really close. Vivian and Douglas kept introducing her to everyone around. I don't remember how I ended the call. I just remember sitting frozen on the floor, my heart pounding like a trapped animal. 3 years of love and trust, pierced by one devastating blow. But I'm not the type to fall apart quietly. Sunday morning, I hired a private investigator in Naples, a man named Marcus, known for being fast and discreet. I told him to follow Ethan and his family until they left town. Money didn't matter. I needed the truth no matter how much it burned. For the next 24 hours, I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just sat by my phone, counting every minute. By Sunday evening, Marcus sent me the first batch of photos. In every frame, the truth was brutal. Ethan standing next to the woman, smiling as she wrapped her arms around him. Vivian nearby, her eyes glowing with satisfaction. Douglas raising a glass like he'd just won a long strategic game. Her name was Lily, Marcus had found out, a high-end sales associate at a luxury boutique in Miami. Not a coincidence. Not a mistake. A calculated move. That night, when Ethan came home, I waited for him in the living room. My heart was stone cold. For the first time in 3 years, I looked at him and didn't see the man I once loved. He walked in, eyes avoiding mine, shoulders slightly hunched. I smiled, a sharp, knife-like smile. Good trip? I asked softly. Silence. A silence so heavy I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. Then he said something that shattered my world. I think we should postpone the wedding. I set down my coffee, reached for the folder I had prepared and slid it across the table to him. Perfect, I said coldly. Because I just got some interesting updates from your trip. Ethan flipped through the photos, his eyes wide with disbelief as he stared at the undeniable proof. In the images, Lily beamed as Ethan leaned in to whisper something. Vivian watched from nearby, her expression calculated. Douglas raised his glass, looking thrilled. None of them acted like a wedding was happening in less than a week. I crossed my arms and watched as Ethan struggled to speak. The air between us was suffocating. He stammered, this isn't what it looks like. I bit back a bitter laugh. Isn't what it looks like? What is it, Ethan? A rehearsal before swapping brides? My words hit him like a slap. He bowed his head, silent. Right then my phone buzzed. It was Sadie. You won't believe this, she said quickly. I just heard Lily bragging at the bar. She told her friends Vivian and Douglas promised if she could make Ethan waver, they'd take care of everything. I closed my eyes for a second. The suspicions I'd buried deep were now in plain sight. This wasn't some accident. It wasn't a joke. It was a plan. One meant to replace me. I hung up and stared coldly at Ethan, who was still dazed by the photos. Did you know? I said, my voice eerily calm. She's running around Naples, bragging about sabotaging our wedding. Saying your parents hired her? Ethan looked up, eyes red. He opened his mouth, searching for a defense, but none came. I stood up, walked to the filing cabinet and took out a large envelope. Here, I said, sliding it toward him. The hotel bill, spa receipts, restaurant tabs, and the jewelry store invoice, the one where Lily got her little gift. Ethan opened it, each piece of paper hitting like a hammer. I leaned against the desk, arms folded, eyes locked on his face. You didn't just betray me with your actions, I whispered. You betrayed me with your silence. Just then, the door swung open. Vivian and Douglas walked in like they owned the place. Vivian held a wedding planner, while Douglas mumbled something about a golf course, eyes still glued to his phone. They only stopped when they saw the scene inside, me standing coldly by the table, Ethan stunned in front of the evidence file. Vivian broke the silence first. Oh, come on, she said with a forced smile. It was just a few harmless meetups. Don't blow this out of proportion, Hazel. I turned to her, my gaze firm, no trace of hesitation. Harmless? I repeated, my voice like steel. Booking hotel rooms for Lily, paying for her jewelry, introducing her to your friends like she's family. That's what you call harmless? Douglas didn't even lift his eyes from his phone, completely detached. Vivian took a step forward, smirking. Hazel, you have to understand we were just thinking about Ethan. He deserves a better future, someone more suitable. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. You mean someone with a wealthier family, don't you? I asked, each word cutting. Someone who can bring your family more money and status? Vivian didn't deny it. She simply adjusted her shawl, her eyes icy. I turned to Ethan, locking my gaze on him. What about you, Ethan? I asked quietly, my voice as sharp as a blade. Do you think I'm not good enough? His mouth opened, but the words died. His silence said it all. And that was the moment I knew, a cruel but liberating moment, that I no longer wanted to belong to any part of this family. I picked up the folder, glanced at Vivian one last time. This wedding, I said, voice low but resounding, is officially over from this moment. Vivian's lips tightened, her eyes blazing. Douglas still didn't look up. Ethan hung his head, shoulders slumped like a child caught red-handed. I turned and walked out without looking back. I stepped into the evening air, leaving that room behind like a stage after the final curtain. The cool breeze hit my face, but inside, I burned. Like someone who had just escaped a fire. I sat in my car for a few minutes, breathing deeply to stop the tears from falling. I wasn't crying from heartbreak anymore. I cried from fury, from betrayal, from knowing that 3 years of my youth had been bartered like some cheap item. My phone rang. It was Sadie. Are you okay? She asked, her voice thick with concern. I gave a dry laugh. Better than ever, but I need you to help me with something. A few minutes later I sent Sadie everything Marcus the PI had collected. The evidence wasn't just photos. It included receipts and even audio recordings from the hotel bar where Lily and Vivian openly discussed the bride replacement plan. I knew Vivian would try to twist the story, but this time I wouldn't let them slip away so easily. The next morning, I sent an invitation to Ethan, Vivian, Douglas, and Lily, requesting their presence at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Charleston. I booked a private meeting room and asked the staff to set up a big screen, speakers, and a projector. I signed the invite to clarify matters before the wedding. No one knew this wouldn't be a reconciliation, this was going to be a trial, and they would incriminate themselves. At exactly 10 a.m., I walked into the room in a simple cream-colored dress. Hair neatly tied up. I wanted them to see. I wasn't broken. I wasn't ruined. I was standing tall, stronger than ever. Ethan was already there, looking miserable in a wrinkled suit. Vivian sat with her arms crossed, face carved from stone. Douglas, as always, stared at his phone. Lily, in contrast, wore a tight dress and heavy makeup like she was in a beauty pageant. I sat across from them, plugged in the USB, and started the presentation. Each photo, each video on the screen tore through the web of lies they had built. Ethan turned red. Vivian bit her lips so hard I thought she might bleed. Douglas finally looked up, his face heavy and tired. Then came the audio. Vivian's voice unmistakable. As long as Lily makes Ethan question things, Hazel will be nothing but a footnote. Silence swallowed the room. I stood up, voice steady. So who wants to explain first? No one answered. I looked straight at Ethan. You said you wanted to postpone the wedding. I'm helping you make that decision quicker. He opened his mouth to speak, but Vivian cut in. Hazel, don't turn this into a disaster. This was all for Ethan's future. I laughed. The sound echoed off the walls. For his future? Or for your family's reputation? I asked sharply, because clearly no one thought about my feelings while you paraded some stranger into my life a week before the wedding. Lily shifted in her seat, lips tightly pressed. I stepped forward, voice firm. And if you think this will stay hidden, you're wrong. Every bill, every video, every piece of evidence, it's stored in multiple places. One phone call and it'll land on Douglas's business partners' desks, Vivian's golf club circles, and across social media. Douglas paled. Vivian gripped the chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ethan remained silent. Silent, like a true accomplice. I gathered the file back together, slowly stacking the pages. I'm canceling the wedding, I announced. I'm erasing every trace of you from my life, and I hope that every morning when you look in the mirror you remember today. the day you lost someone who truly loved Ethan." Without waiting for a reply, I turned and walked out of that suffocating room filled with shame and regret. I left the Ritz-Carlton, heels hitting the Charleston pavement like the steady beat of a freed heart. But deep inside, I knew this story wasn't over yet. That night, while packing away the final memories of our 3-year relationship, my phone rang again. It was Sadie. "You need to hear this," she said without hesitation. "Someone at the resort just told me. Lily's been bragging nonstop. Not only did Vivian and Douglas fund her trip, but they gave her lavish gifts to persuade Ethan." I clenched the phone. "They paid her..." "Not just cash," Sadie replied. "Jewelry, shopping cards, and according to Lily, even a job offer, if she could seal the deal." I froze in the middle of the empty room, a cold shiver running down my spine. They didn't just try to replace me. They tried to buy Ethan's future, building a fake stage with Lily cast as the lead. Sadie hesitated, then added, "You should also know, Vivian told a few close friends that she never considered you worthy of their family. To her, you were just a temporary compromise." I closed my eyes, letting those words sink in like bitter medicine. All those times I'd tried to be patient, to prove I was good enough, to believe that kindness would soften their hearts, it had all been a delusion. When I opened my eyes, the fire in me was no longer pain. It was resolve. "Sadie," I said, my voice calm, "I'm not letting them walk away like nothing happened." I picked up my laptop and opened Marcus's files again. Besides the photos and receipts, there was that audio clip. Lily boasting about the bride swap plan. Vivian's voice echoed loud and clear in the recording. "As long as Lily knows how to sway Ethan, we'll handle the rest. Hazel's not the one for him." Every word, every sentence carved into the humiliation I had swallowed for 3 long years. But now, they were my proof. I sat up straight and composed a new email. Recipients: Sadie, Marcus, and a few close friends who had witnessed my journey with Ethan from the start. I attached everything, adding one cold note. "In case of emergency, make sure the truth is seen." I no longer hoped for an apology from Vivian or Douglas. I no longer waited for Ethan to come to his senses. They chose their path, and now I'm choosing to let them face the consequences. By the next morning, the news began to leak. It started as whispers among friends, but within hours it spread. The prestigious Douglas family tried to swap brides a week before the wedding by hiring a third party. Several of Douglas's business partners canceled meetings. Rumors buzzed at the golf club. A former charity friend of Vivian even posted a thinly veiled jab online. I used to think bride swapping was just a soap opera thing. I sat in my usual cafe, sipping a latte, calmly reading the flood of messages. Not because I wanted to watch them fall, but because this was justice. The kind they once thought they were too rich to ever face. As of Wednesday, around noon, Sadie sent me a short text. "Lily just deleted all her social media. Word is she's furious that Vivian cut her off after the truth got out." I smiled faintly. Lesson 1 in Vivian's world: loyalty has a price, but it's worth nothing when scandal hit. As dusk fell over Charleston, I walked along the riverbank, feeling weightless. I no longer needed to twist myself just to be accepted. I didn't have to shrink who I was to hold on to a love that never deserved me. 3 days after the scandal exploded, I decided to take one final step. An emergency meeting at the wedding venue, the place that was once meant to mark the most sacred moment of my life, would now be the stage where I exposed every lie. I sent invitations to Ethan, Vivian, Douglas, and Lily. The message was brief. Urgent meeting to finalize event planning. I wanted them to think I was still hesitating, still holding on to some desperate hope. They all showed up. Vivian in a beige Chanel dress, her eyes betraying irritation. Douglas brought his laptop, probably still clinging to the idea of going over the prestigious guest list. Ethan looked worn out, the dark circles under his eyes proof of sleepless nights. And Lily? She arrived like the star of the show, in a short dress, bold red lipstick, and a smug glint in her eyes. I stood before them, a large screen behind me in the hall. Without a word, I started the slideshow I had carefully prepared. First image, Ethan and Lily, cozy by the pool. Second, Vivian handing a gift box to Lily outside the hotel room. Third, $1,000 receipt for silver jewelry from the boutique at the resort. Fourth, an audio recording of Vivian promising to take care of everything if Lily could make Ethan change his mind. The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the projector. When the audio clip ended, I turned to face them. I think, I said, voice calm but sharp as steel, someone should start explaining. Vivian forced a nervous chuckle. Hazel, don't be dramatic. It was just a few little arrangements. We can still talk this through. Douglas frowned, face flushed, but said nothing. Lily surprisingly only shrugged, her lips curled in defiance. And Ethan, the man I once believed would hold my hand for life, just sat there, eyes down, silent like a shadow. I took slow, steady steps toward him, my eyes locked on his face. Do you have anything to say to me? Ethan looked up. His eyes were so hollow it made my skin crawl. I think, he croaked, voice hoarse and broken, we should go our separate ways. No apology, no explanation. Just a cold farewell in the middle of the mess he helped create. I gave a faint smile, feeling strangely lighter. Good, I said, my voice echoing through the empty hall. At least this time you had the courage to say it. Vivian jumped to her feet, her face turning red. Hazel, you'll regret this. Not everyone gets the chance to join a family like ours. I looked at her, a bitter smile playing on my lips. I'd rather start over with nothing, I replied, than live a lifetime under your control and lies. Douglas quickly tugged her back into her seat, whispering something into her ear, likely advising her to stop before it got worse. I packed up my laptop, adjusted my dress, and walked out of the hall with my head held high. Behind me, the murmurs started. Whispering, bickering, confusion spreading like a slow-burning fire. But I didn't look back. I walked past rows of empty chairs, past white tablecloths still waiting to be pressed. Every step I took marked the ground that should have witnessed the happiest day of my life. The scandal spread faster than I expected. Within a week, what started as hushed gossip over afternoon tea became full-blown news across Charleston. The Douglas family tried to sabotage a wedding by hiring a replacement bride. Every detail fell into place. Vivian searching for a better candidate, Douglas funding it behind the scenes, Lily receiving lavish gifts to wedge herself into my 3-year relationship with Ethan. Online forums tore into the story like wolves at a feast. The social circles Vivian once proudly led, from her golf club, charity groups to elite parent associations, began quietly removing her from membership rosters. Messages saying we need to pause our collaboration rained down like a summer storm. Douglas didn't fare much better. Some of his investors discreetly pulled out, citing a need to reevaluate the company's ethical standards. An internal board meeting was postponed indefinitely. I listened to all of it in silence, not with glee, not with regret, just with a quiet sense that justice was finally working the way it should. As for Lily, the woman who thought sneaking into the Douglas family would transform her life, she quickly realized sandcastles don't survive real waves. After the scandal broke, Ethan clung to her like a drowning man to driftwood. They were spotted having dinner at a few local restaurants, trying to pose as a couple who weathered the storm. But Lily was never the type to suffer for love. Once she realized there'd be no lavish wedding, no massive inheritance, no $1 million mansion, she began distancing herself. On a Saturday night, Lily posted a new photo on Instagram, arm in arm with another wealthy older man, captioned sweetly, "Better choices come when you realize you deserve more." 3 days later, she cut off all contact with Ethan. No texts, no goodbye, not a shred of guilt. And Ethan, once proud and untouchable, now spiraled in despair. Sadie told me she spotted him alone at our old bar, staring blankly ahead. A full beer, untouched before him. Maybe Ethan thought he was playing a dangerous game, that he'd explore other options and come back to me once the dust settled. What he didn't realize was that game destroyed everything, not just our love, but the last bit of respect I had for him. Vivian's true nature became clearer than ever. She hosted a few small parties, desperate to repair her social image, but few people stayed. Polite greetings, followed by quick excuses to leave. Event invites stopped coming, replaced by conflicting schedules and family priorities. Douglas faded into silence. Rightfully so, his business reputation was the most valuable thing he ever had, and now it was crumbling in plain view. I lived in peace while they weathered the storm they created. Every morning, I woke up in my sun-filled apartment, brewed a rich cup of coffee, and smiled at where I stood. Not as a bride left behind, but as a woman who chose herself. 1 month after I walked away from the altar that never got built, Sadie and I threw a small party, jokingly calling it a rebirth celebration. Close friends came, we laughed, celebrated, danced under warm yellow lights. I wore the simple white dress I'd originally picked for my engagement party, but this time I wore it for me. No license, no vows, just real freedom. That afternoon, as golden sunlight bathed the historic streets of Charleston, I stood in front of a tall mirror in Sadie's living room, gently adjusting the ivory silk dress I wore. Not a wedding dress, not a glamorous gown, just a light flowing dress, free, effortless, and a perfect fit for the new life I was stepping into. Sadie walked in holding a small flower crown and beamed. Here she is, the queen of tonight's party. I burst into laughter, the kind that finally carried no bitterness, no weight. No Ethan, no Vivian, no judgmental stares or passive-aggressive comments. Just me, surrounded by people who truly loved me for who I was. The non-wedding party was held in Sadie's backyard, which she had decorated with warm string lights, white ribbons fluttering in the breeze, and lavender blooms placed all around. The guests were only my closest friends, the ones who had seen me through both my brightest and darkest days. Everyone dressed simply but radiantly. There was no pressure, no pretense, just genuine laughter and tight, meaningful hugs. Sadie popped open a bottle of champagne and poured the first round. Raising her glass, eyes twinkling under the lights, she said, "We're not celebrating a wedding, we're celebrating a woman who chose herself." Everyone cheered, and for the first time in months, my heart felt weightless. We ate pizza instead of a fancy buffet. Instead of premium red wine, we clinked glasses of juice and soda. The 3-tier wedding cake that was meant for the big day, Sadie had replaced it with a small, simple cake, piped with one sweet message. "Welcome back, Hazel." I couldn't hold back the tears, but this time they were tears of pure happiness. That night, with music playing and laughter filling the air, I danced with my friends under a sky full of stars. No heels, no heavy dress, no pressure to appear perfect in anyone's eyes. I danced with my whole heart, messy, clumsy, but absolutely free. Near midnight, Sadie pulled me from the dance floor and handed me a small silver-wrapped box. "Gift for you," she whispered. I opened it. Inside was a simple bracelet engraved with 3 words. "End your story." I clutched it in my hand, feeling the sweet weight of those words. No one has the right to write my story but me, not a family, not a man, not a false promise. I smiled at my reflection in the window glass. The life I once feared would crumble without Ethan was, in fact, just beginning a new chapter. The most beautiful one yet. Where I was finally holding the pen. As the party ended and friends began to leave, I stood alone in the quiet backyard, looking up at the sky. A shooting star streaked across the night, quick as a blink. I closed my eyes and whispered a simple wish. May I always remember that freedom is not the absence of pain, but the choice to move forward even when the heart has been torn. I opened my eyes, smiling softly, and took my first steps into a future that didn't need a lavish wedding or a grand venue. Only a heart brave enough to love life with unshaken faith. That day, I thought I had lost everything. A 3-year love, a dream wedding, a family I fought to build. But in truth, I had been saved, rescued from a future full of deceit and manipulation. Now, I live my own life, free, strong, and no longer bending to please anyone. I've learned that sometimes, loss isn't the end. It's the door to something better, a journey where every step belongs to me. What do you think of Hazel's journey? Have you ever had to choose between love and self-respect like she did? Share your thoughts in the comments. and don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful family stories ahead.